Hello, and welcome to the Color Whisperer Show. So, today is going to be random thoughts from the Color Whisperer's head. So, you're going to go into a place that a lot of people are kind of scared to go, and that's the inside workings of my head. And it can be wonderful and it can be kind of scary. So, first of all, I need to apologize because we're having some technical issues. you know, this whole live podcast thing is full of ups and downs, and I got to learn and I got to fix. And it's just, live, right? So when I came on and we were starting, got all the lighting ready and stuff, everything was fine. And then we started, and now it's fuzzy. And I've cleaned the lens, and we don't know why I'm fuzzy. So, anyway, it's not your eyes. I'm just fuzzy, and hopefully by next time we'll figure out why. So I'll clean it again, maybe 2 or 3 times. I don't know why it's doing it. So anyway, there's been some very interesting things. We're going to talk about human nature today because it's been very intriguing from where I sit. Now, I have to admit that I do have a different perspective on the world than most because of where I come from. You guys have learned some of my back history, who I am, my abilities of healing. I'm very empathetic, and what I've always had an innate ability to do is, when I want to, I don't do it all the time, you go crazy, put myself in somebody else's shoes and say, why did they come to this conclusion? Why did this make sense to them? And it's a very brave thing to do, to step into somebody else's shoes, because you're going to be feeling their feelings, and they may be feelings that you don't agree with. And maybe they did something, like, why would that make sense to somebody? Why would it make sense to hurt a child? Okay, let's pick on something really dramatic. Why would it make sense to really beat a child to somebody? And there's one part of your brain that says, under no circumstances is that okay. And there's another part of like, okay, let's find out what got into this person that made it okay. And there's always a backstory of what led to that situation. My dad, when he was dying, my sister got involved with some Nigerian scammers. And they were promising they were going to take care of her. And my sister needed taken care of. And he didn't know who was going to do it. And he had a daughter from, well, there's somebody else that I'm pretty sure in his mind he felt had said yes, at least. And that wasn't their thing. They didn't know Teresa that well. They didn't know what she needed. So they weren't really up for the job. I could only do so much. And not that I was unwilling, but the fact that she was involved with these Nigerian scammers was a very difficult thing to deal with. And so here's this guy, whether my dad knows him or doesn't know him, he's going to take care of his daughter. Anyway, towards the end of his death, was last week, I was there and they were there, and it was getting heated, and I grabbed her phone from her and she called the cops. And I told her, I said, you're not calling these people. You're not talking to these people. First of all, we have bigger fish to fry. This is not acceptable. And like, these people are not helping right now in any way, shape, or form. And she called the cops. The cops came and Fortunately, the cops were on my side and they started telling me stuff. And I said, no, you need to come in here with my dad and I need you to tell him this stuff. So they did, because I went to, and I started out. I said, Dad, I took Teresa's phone away and Teresa called the cops. I told them why I took the phone away. You guys don't need to know the details of that. But basically, these scammers were getting in the way. And he's like, well, good. I'm glad she called the cops on you. What? He was down with this guy who, in his mind, he wanted my sister to be taken care of. And in that space, all he knew was this guy promised to take care of her. And nobody else was really stepping up to the plate. And he hadn't really discussed it with me, which is interesting. But he wanted to believe so badly that this man was going to do what was being promised, that he took my sister's side on this. Were some things said and done that hurt? 100%. From his point of, I'm dying, I can't take care of her anymore. And she needs somebody to take care of her. And here's somebody ready to step up to the plate. I can be in his shoes and say, okay, he wanted to believe this story so badly that these choices made sense to him. So you see what I'm talking about? So this is what I have an innate ability to do. And, you know, we've had the fires here and there's been so much going on. Like 2025 started off with a bang. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's February. It's like the first week of February is gone already. It's been a whole month since the fires started. And it's like, it's been such a whirlwind. And I mean, I was fortunate. I didn't even lose, you know, I lost electricity for 5 days. Big deal, you know, but this is kind of where I want to go into human nature, because we forget about stuff like this, who we're really made up of. My dad was not a bad guy. My dad, he'd give you the shirt off his back. You know, he helped so many people in his life. It's not funny. He loved to give. Loved to give. Did he do some bad things to me in the last part? Especially around this situation? You betcha. Was his intention to be mean? I don't believe so. And sometimes, you know, people say stuff that they're looking inward. After my miscarriage, oh, the things people say after you tell them you've had a miscarriage. You know, and then we got divorced. Oh, it's a good thing you don't have kids. Okay, there's some truth to that, yes. It makes it a lot easier if you don't have kids and have a divorce. But that was still really raw with me. And it hurt. You know, oh, well, it's God's blessing. It's God's, you know, we can't question God's path. Yeah, I freaking questioned it a lot. A lot. Okay, I'd accepted I wasn't going to have kids, so why did I get pregnant? You know, why did I have to go through that again? People aren't trained to be mean. Around a death, people always say stupid stuff. Stupid stuff. And they're not trying to be mean. I had somebody, after my miscarriage, they had a bunch of kids. There's always kids around them. And they went inside their heart and said, wow, life is meaningless without kids. What a freaking thing to say to somebody who just had a miscarriage. Oh my God, are you insane? But they were speaking from what they felt about what if that had happened to me. They weren't speaking of how do I encourage this person? How can I solace this person? They went into their own space of, I can't imagine life without kids. My life would be so boring. My life would be so empty. My life would be so. They weren't thinking oh my God, that's a horrible thing to say to Jeanette, right? When, she's still sore from all this. In their mind, they didn't connect it. Okay. So this is what I'm saying. But that's what today's going to be about. But how do we make some connections? How do we look at what's really going on in front of us? Because I'm seeing some very interesting dichotomies, and I have a unique view of the world. So I'm going to share them with you. So first of all, when everybody I talked to, I went to an event last night. So beautiful. It was helping out the people in the fires. So just to clarify, I was near the Altadena fires. The Altadena fires are probably, well, they started like maybe less than 10 miles away from me. One of the fires did get very close to me, probably within a mile. I wasn't in danger or nothing, but, close enough. As close as ever I want to be, right? And, people were helping each other. Neighbors were helping each other. Checking in with each other. How are you doing? What's going on? Calling people who were in the path of fire. Hi, can I help you? Do you need help? Do you need a place to, people were called. Can I stay at your house? Yes, yes, yes. When you have to evacuate, come stay at my house. No question. I had several people say, Jeanette, if you have to evacuate, come stay here. Without blinking. And I did it to a couple people too. I had a friend who was closer to the LA fires, and I said, hey, you need a space, come. And she told me, don't call, just show up. I told her the same thing. You don't have to call, just show up. Years ago, when I started doing in-home cells, I had some people ask me, aren't you afraid of going into strangers' homes? And I really had to do some soul searching. And what I came up with, I truly believe that most people are kind at heart. There's nothing, but they're just as afraid of me as I am of them, Yeah, I remember, there was some TV show a long time ago, and they hired a cleaning crew, and they got there, and the cleaning crew got shot, part of some dastardly plan. And it's like, there's always those kinds of stories. But in my last 30 years of doing stuff like that, I've only been scared twice. And one time, this guy opened the door. I don't know how tall he was, but I kept looking up and looking up and looking up. And I'm only 5'2", and this guy was at least 6'4", and wide. He looked like a linebacker. Like, he was as wide as the door and as tall as the door practically. And I gulped and was like, oh my gosh, it's this giant guy, and like he could breathe on me, and that would be it. He's such a big guy. And his little 2-year-old came up to him, put his arms around his knee. Daddy, can I get a water or something? Whatever. He reached down his hand and I'll be with you in a minute. And just as soon as he talked, I was like, oh, this guy's a sweetheart. Now, I wouldn't want to be crossing him in the dark alley by myself, but you could tell, like, as soon as he spoke. And I imagine if you're that size, you have to put people at ease relatively quickly. I read a book. It was As You Wish, from The Princess Bride. It's by Cary Elwes. And in it, he talks a lot about Andre the Giant and how he had to disarm people against himself and kind of, make fun of himself. And one of the things he did was he called everybody boss. And here's this guy who's huge. Like, literally he could snap anybody in two he wanted to. But he called everybody boss. And it disarmed them. And it made him feel less threatening. And, sweet guy. But, the size, right? So anyway, that was one time, and that lasted like seconds. Another time, the woman was drunk and she didn't want me there. She wanted me there. The husband wasn't drunk and he didn't want me there. I'm like, I'm going to go. So don't need to deal with that. But when the fires happened, you really got to see people's giving nature. This last election has been really intense. And everybody here, we saw all the helicopters going overhead. There was billows and billows and billows of smoke going overhead. Some people are told you can't drink the water. It's interesting the way they said, this city you can't drink the water, that city you can. We're all on the same path. The same smoke was over all of our places. So who knows? But anyway, everybody was, all over the community pages on Facebook. I've got this to give. I've got this to give. How can I help? How can I help? I have one of my friends lost their home, and they got into their new apartment just this week. Yay. They're very excited. And so much of their stuff is people gave to them. I don't know if they bought anything. They bought a new mattress. I know that. But she says, it was so beautiful the way she said it. Our home is furnished with love. It may not be what they would have chosen, but their home is furnished with love. And I thought that was so beautiful. And, people cleaned out closets and, giving tons of stuff away, food, you name it. There's these little pop-up charities going around. I was talking to somebody, their church has started a diaper donation. So you give money and they buy diapers for the people who were in the fires. And so all these little donation things have come up. And what's beautiful is nobody's asking, what color's your skin? What creed are you? Who do you sleep with at night? Who did you vote for? That one's been a really, how many times have you seen on Facebook, if you voted for Trump, count me out as your friend. I don't want to talk to you anymore. What a passive-aggressive, bitchy thing to do. I'm sorry. I don't care who you hate. Unfriend me if you voted for Trump. That's just, what? If you see stuff on their page and you don't like it, unfriend them. When I had my miscarriage, there was a lot of people I unfriended. Oh, I just had my grandbaby. Oh, I just had a baby. It hurt me to see it. It truly hurt me to see it. I didn't go right on my page. I just had a miscarriage, and if you just had a baby, please unfriend me. No. What passive-aggressive bullshit is that? No. Monitor your own friends. If something's going on that you can't stand, monitor it yourself. I chose not to see these people celebrating their child because it hurt me. They've done nothing wrong. They have every right to celebrate their child. On Mother's Day, I don't turn on Facebook because there's a lot of people who deserve to celebrate Mother's Day. I don't want to. I don't want to see all the Mother's Day signs. I don't want to go to a restaurant where they're handing out flowers to all the mothers or something like that. But you know what? Everybody else who is a mother and has a mother damn well deserves that. So I can choose to hide on that day. But during these fires, nobody's asking you, who'd you vote for? What do you think about this issue? What do you think about that issue? We've got a very heated political situation right now, and it's ugly. Beyond ugly. And I'm not talking about just because it's Trump and presidency. I'm talking about how we, the people, are reacting. It's ugly. It's so beautiful. It's so warm. Another friend I spoke with, she lost her house. Her boss had an ADU. He said, come here. Come stay here for free. How beautiful. I know several people, they're going to be staying in Airbnbs for the year. It's a win-win for both people. They got a house full of furniture. They've got a kitchen full of stuff. They don't have to buy everything right away. They have some time to think, time to heal, time to get over the grief, time to get through the paperwork, time to decide, what am I going to do for the next part of my life? That time is such an incredible gift when the world gets pulled out from underneath of you. That time to figure out, Who am I now? And who do I want to be? It's so precious. Absolutely precious. And we need that time. That's part of healing. That's why when there's a death, when a spouse dies, or they'll often say, don't make any decisions for a year. Even a parent. A lot of what they call it, not divorce, death. A lot of lawyers that are in charge of wills. My brain just blanked. They'll tell you, don't make any major decisions for a year, because you need that time to heal. You need that time to go through every holiday and say, oh, I've got to reinvent it. It's not going to be the same again. It's not going to be that way ever again. And these people who lost their homes, that is what's going on. We're not going to celebrate Christmas again in this home. We're not going to have the Easter tradition. We're not going to have the birthday celebration. That first year of grief is tough. Who's going to be there? Well, we used to be the house that we had all the meetings at, all the family holidays at. Now where are we going to have it? I was the matriarch. Am I still the matriarch? Am I still important? Maybe their ego was wrapped up in who are they as the house that hosts all the holidays? That person's not there now. Maybe they're just living in a small apartment. They can't host it anymore. Many of these people find a way to host it in an apartment anyway, I'm sure. But so there's been so much kindness in this city. Everybody you talk to is affected. Everybody knows somebody who's affected. How can I give? How can I give more? How can I help? This thing I went to last night, I said, I want to help. I have time to give. I wish I had a big bucket of money. I wish I would be happy to donate a huge bucket of money to these people. These millionaire, there are people who've given, but I really would love to be able to go to each of my friends who lost their home, and even people that didn't, that I don't know, and say, here's some money to rebuild. Here's some money to get back on your feet. It's not my gift right now. I can give them time. And none of these things that you go on Facebook and you see everybody pissed off about matter. None of these things matter. People are giving because they recognize the loss. And then it is interesting. You go on Facebook and there's a lot of hate out there right now. And let's disseminate what that really looks like and what that really means, because everybody's looking at Facebook, or pick you're on X. Is it Twitter or X? I don't know. Or maybe you're on Telegram, or you're on, is it Blue Skies? I think it's Blue Skies, or Instagram, or whatever it is. You're in a bar, you're talking to friends. People are heated in a way they've never been heated before. And I don't care which side of your fence you're on. You're like, well, for good reason. Blah, 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 blah. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's sit back and let's look at what's really going on here. Because let's face it, first of all, media is there to scare us. When you watch the news, what do you see? You see all the bad stuff going on. Do you ever see on the news, oh, a good Samaritan helped somebody? Maybe once in a blue moon. That's not what the news is about. The news is about scaring people. I'm here to tell you there are people on the internet that are out there doing the same dang thing. They are getting paid to spread memes that they know people are going to get riled up over. And they don't care. They just care about their getting money. They don't have any heart behind these memes. They're just getting paid to go out there and spread them. And what do we, the people, do? We pick them up and like, oh yeah, this meme fits my hate, and I'm going to spread it because I'm right. Now somebody else thinks that I'm right, that believes the same thing I do. So that must really mean I'm right. And and let's spread it to a million other people. And let's see how far we can go, because the more people put this on their Facebook feed, then the more right it is. Is that true? Is that really true? How much of the world believes in Santa Claus? We all know Santa doesn't actually exist. But we love what Santa means, and we practice it, and we believe it because we believe in the spirit of Santa Claus. There's not some guy, well, we did have somebody come to my house when I was little. Well, that's another story. My dad never knew who it was. At least that's what he said. He never confessed to something else. But, you know, none of us adults are going to bed at night on Christmas Eve and thinking toys are magically appearing under the tree. We know how those toys get under there. But we do it because we believe in the spirit of Christmas. We believe in the spirit of some man who's giving toys to children just because. We believe in the spirit of giving, of creating a holiday for somebody that doesn't have one. I had a friend tell me this Christmas, about a week before Christmas, a friend of hers got laid off. There was no Christmas. They had 3 kids. They had no Christmas. I had some toys in my garage. I said, here, they can have them. Yeah, I was going to try to get a few bucks from online. Maybe I would have got $50 for him. Who knows? I made somebody's Christmas. They got to have toys underneath the tree. They got to have a surprise. These parents got to give their kids a gift for Christmas that they didn't stress over. That's the gift. It has nothing to do with the thing. It's the gift of giving joy. Let's look. I'm going to pick an issue that is very heated, but let's really look at it, okay? Abortion. I know I'm going to get controversial. I don't do it a lot, but I'm doing it today. So you ask the left, why do we need abortion? Well, can't expect somebody who gets raped to carry on and have a baby. Okay, there's a lot of logic in there. I personally have a very good friend who was raped and decided to keep the baby, and they have the most wonderful relationship, and never once in that child's life has she looked at it and saw the rape. Not once. She saw a gift from God that she truly loves, and she couldn't give up that child for nothing. It's her best friend. They're the best of friends. Child's all grown up. They're the best of friends. So that's not a blatant rule, is my point. The other one you get a lot is, oh, what if an 11-year-old gets raped, most likely by somebody she knows, a father or stepfather or some uncle, and they have to have a baby. They shouldn't have to have the baby. I totally agree. An 11-year-old should not be pregnant. An 11-year-old should not have to have a baby. An 11-year-old is not capable of having a baby. Let's look at the numbers. How many people get abortions every year? I'd love to see those 2 categories pulled out. And it's millions of people that get abortions every year. I'd love to see how many of those fit those 2 categories. Because I 100% agree. Those 2 categories should not have to be. I also think we need to come much harder on anybody who does anything like that to a child. Yes, I can step into their brains and I can understand some of the psychosis that goes into that. And let me tell you, it's an uncomfortable feeling. Because it comes from a lot of hurt on their part and a lot of where their brains got messed up too. Many times they were abused as well. I've seen the effects of this abuse personally. It's ugly. And it's cruel. Because it doesn't just stay in that moment. It goes on for years, generations. And if you dare to hurt a child like that, you should not get a slap on the hand and be let out. You should go in jail and you should never come out. Maybe if we had more laws that actually protected these children, they wouldn't be raped. Maybe if they didn't say, oh, they're just children, they don't know what they're talking about. We're going to just let the case go because the child doesn't know or the child's being manipulated. Maybe if they actually really looked into the situation and we had some real punishment for people who hurt children, there'd be less rape. There wouldn't be these 11-year-olds who even have to think about what if they got pregnant. Still would be love to see those numbers. How many of the millions of babies that get aborted? Maybe it's thousands. It's way too many. It's hundreds of thousands. It's hundreds of thousands. I know that. There's a counter somewhere on the internet. I didn't go look at it today. I didn't plan on going this far. But it's out there. I'd love to see what that number is. Now, the right says that from the time of inception, it's a baby. In my own personal circumstance, what happened to my body as soon as I conceived, there's no way you can tell me that there wasn't another being there, that there wasn't another. You can't tell me that it wasn't alive. That's my own personal experience. There was definitely something going on. I can understand there are people who want to say, not till it's got a heartbeat, not till it's got its first breath, whatever that line is for you. But from my own experience, my body changed so much in just a few short weeks. And that's all I got. That little peanut, that little pod, that was my baby. I didn't get to hold it. And what I've seen, my first year out of school, I worked in a baby factory. I'm joking. I'm not joking. I worked at a place. There were 8 babies born in my department. I used to joke it was a chair because everybody who sat in the chair got pregnant. And they're like, we're going to put that chair at your desk. I said, don't you dare. I'm not ready. But what it was a place that a lot of, mid-20s, early 30s women worked, and a lot of women got pregnant. And I tell you, I saw it over and over and over again. It didn't matter, creed, whether they're blue or red. As soon as they found out they're pregnant, that was their baby. They stopped drinking coffee. They stopped smoking. They stopped. Or they couldn't do the toner in the copy machine or whatever it was. There was some machine, the art machine I had to do because they couldn't do it as soon as they got pregnant. And let me tell you, the minute they got pregnant, they couldn't touch that thing. But because they wanted that child. Now, I don't know. Nobody came and said, in that environment, nobody's going to come up and say, oh, yeah, I had an abortion this weekend. It didn't happen. But I know that these were all different political people, but different sides of the fence, every single one of them. As soon as they found out they were pregnant, the minute they found out they were pregnant, their lives changed. And that was their baby. And if you don't want it, we did have somebody who wasn't sure what she was going to do, and she kept it quiet a little bit longer. And, it's a difficult decision to make, 100%. And I've seen the silent scream. It's terrible. And one of my mentors said to me one day, it's a terrible thing not to love a child. And that struck my heart so much. And I saw it firsthand. I've seen abuse firsthand. It is a terrible thing not to love a child, because it's not just in that moment. It lasts that kid's lifetime. It goes on beyond that kid. It goes into how they treat their kids and their kids. It goes on for generations. It is a horrible crime. not to love a child? Should someone be forced to have a child and give it up for adoption? I couldn't afford adoption. Would I have loved to been able to hold a baby? 100%. I have a sister who's adopted. There was a time she was the greatest gift to our family. I have a friend who adopted. It's the only way she could have kids. There's a lot of benefit to that. Should a mother, if it's in danger of the mother's life, that's a different story. That's not an abortion. That becomes a whole different category of medical stuff. So I want you to look at these two sides. Both sides go from extremes. As you're looking at Facebook and being told, you've got to hate Trump, you've got to hate Trump. Well, the other side is, Democrats are all idiots, or Trumpers are all, what do they say? They're all, you're just in a cult and you're blindly following an idiot. So, each side's calling each other's names. So, I don't study a lot of politics. It's not what I do. But I see one side and you've got people going, oh my God, we're getting rid of this and we're getting rid of that. And all these good things are going away. And then I'm seeing other things like this is Soros. What's his first name? I don't know. We give Soros like $200 million. Why the hell does that man need any money from the government? What's that about? I don't think there's anybody on the planet on either side who thinks that man needs more money. And he's got the ability to raise it himself. I saw something else. We're giving Gates money. Gates doesn't have the ability to raise money on his own. He's got a foundation. Why is, I've seen these things pressed in the papers every now and then of like all these government positions. Oh my gosh, I saw this one position one time. I was like, guy made like $300K to select art for the city. I'm like, shoot, I want that job. And have you seen a lot of city art? It's very blasé. Here in Pasadena, it's so funny. So there's a couple neighbors, they played a joke on each other. They put this huge fork in the middle of the road. Okay, now let me tell you, there was actually a fork in the road. A road fork was in the road. And as a joke, they put a big, giant fork in the road. And let me tell you, it just stuck. It was put up makeshift to last, a little while. Now it's got a nice cement thing. It's there for good. Okay, I don't know if the city paid for that or what. I have no idea. But my point is, like, a lot of city art is very blasé, and if you're in Chicago, I mean, that person deserves, their trash cans are art. But I'm like, $300,000 to pick out art that goes around the city. This is a job that, really? I'm like, I don't get paid nearly like that. I'm like, that's a pretty cush job. And there's a lot of jobs in government that are very, very arbitrary, and like I'm seeing some stuff like $1 million for, I don't quote me on any of the stuff. I'm just what I'm remembering seeing. But, it's like $100,000 to start a band. And it was for somebody who's trans. And I'm thinking, there's so many musicians out there. How do you pick one? And, I'm like, I grew up, we had Boy George. Let's see, we had The Cure, we had hair bands. I'm like, okay, at what point is this? I'm like, Boy George, you could make a very good statement either way, right? I'm like, the thing is, I grew up in the 80s. So like the more individual, the more weird you were, the better, right? I mean, it was, shoot, Nick Rhodes more makeup than half the girls in my high school put together. That man knows more about makeup than probably, you could probably get 100 women and he probably knows more about makeup than they do. My point is that the talent and the guts to go out there and be yourself, whatever that is so important. It's so important. And there's a million musicians that need support, a million of them. And I wouldn't even know, how do you pick that one? And I did do a lot. When I was president of ASID, my job was to help get this little teeny tiny law out there. And they were giving us lessons on how do you do it. So how do you do it? One place that got it passed was in the South. Just so happened the president of that chapter had babysat their governor. So she walked up into his office and she said, "Guess what? You're signing this for me." You did. Another group got it passed, and what they did, they took 40 designers up to the capital of their state capital, and they spent 3 weeks. Imagine, they took 3 weeks off work. They had clients, they had commitments, they had kids, they had homes, they had husbands, they had wives, they had, most of us are women, but there could have been some men. They had families, they had things to do. And they took 3 weeks out and they went around every door of the Capitol nonstop for 3 weeks. And basically, it was a squeaky wheel. They just said, "You know what? We'll sign this thing to get rid of you." So when it comes to picking that one band out of the millions of bands that out there that need help, you know what it is? It's who you know. It's who you know. I wouldn't be surprised if they had somebody in mind. "Oh yeah, my nephew, da da da. Okay, here, bam." Because that's how government works. "Oh, my daughter, she just graduated with an art degree and we need to give her a job. $300,000 for picking out art. Score. Okay, you give my daughter a job, I'll give your son a job over here, and he's going to be doing, I don't know, something inane over here." So let's back off this hate and let's really look at what's going on. Yes, there's reasons to be upset, but maybe you're also looking at a version of the news. This happens on both sides. Fox News is all bad. Fox News is fake news. You think there's nothing fake on the rest of the channels? Please. Did you ever go see, this has been going on since time began, right? I'm sorry, but you go back to the bards. The bards told stories. You go back to oh, my brain's going to blank here. There's the Bayeux Tapestries. This is William the Conqueror, 1066. 1066. They didn't have writing back then. They wrote this. The nuns, the conquered nuns, wrote this tableau, sewed this tableau, and they were supposed to tell the story of William the Conqueror, which they did. But you look in the margins, there's some other stuff going on in there too that's not so pretty. You go look at the cathedrals in Europe. Down below, you've got the bishop, you've got this, there's all the saints, da da da. You go up higher, there's some not so saintly stuff happening. Because this was where the people expressed themselves. Okay, so this fake news thing is not new. What's the big famous movie, Rosebud? I don't remember it right now. This is not new. So don't look at your news as, "Oh my God, my news is perfect. My news is right." We got to get different sources of news. And then look at your news. Whichever news you are looking at, look at it. What's it telling you? Because it's based on fear. Is it talking about a minority part of something that could happen? Or is it talking about what's the real effects of what's going on? Most of news is meant to scare us and talk about the smaller, the fringe effects of it. And somewhere in the middle is the truth. That's what we got to look for. Is what's the truth, which is in the middle. Hey, Mark.
Hey there. The funny thing is, as you know, I went to this media conference for a few days and everything. And one of the things that they were talking about it is kind of alluding to what you were talking about and everything, because it was people that were with Amazon and Roku and different other outlets that are out there and everything. And one gentleman, I think his name was Ethan and everything, was talking about how the majority of our young people aren't actually getting their news from traditional media. They're not getting it from the traditional media outlets. They're actually getting it from social media and all along those lines. And as you've been stating in this particular presentation, a lot of times that is biased depending on whichever viewpoint you've got and all along those lines. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because there was several speakers that made that comment that it is a new generation that is not comfortable with the traditional news media, whether that's the newspapers or the television or whatever, and they don't care which outlet it is, but the young people, and they are consuming a lot of the news, are getting it off of Twitter, X, Facebook, Clubhouse, all the different social media outlets, and are getting it in those kind of sources, which oftentimes may not be all that vetted and everything like that. So it's just fascinating. I was listening to you and I was
What
thinking
the
about
days of
the
Walter
presentation.
Cronkite are gone. I mean, I'm sorry. We grew up on Walter Cronkite, and people were you watched the
Right,
news and they told both sides, and we don't
right,
have that anymore. We
right.
don't have that. And the news is definitely biased, and then some is biased Democrat and some is biased Republican. But it is 100. And the Democrats like to say, "Oh, that's faux news. That's faux news." Well, okay, that's faux news because that's Republican news. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna tell you you're an idiot. It's all misinformation. But oh, my news is all correct, which is bullshit because I've seen them make mistakes. And I don't I Channel 2, which is CBS, which is usually the channel that I watch a lot of shows on. So when something comes, I put on Channel 2. And I've seen them say stuff, but it's not like you don't see retractions and stuff. And they don't say, "Oh, we apologize. We said something." I've and they're saying stuff that I they're showing me, they're saying one thing and they're actually showing video that shows something different. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? But my thing is that no, the news, just like humans, is fallible because it's made by humans. And
Oh yeah.
by the very nature of that, we got to be the first one on the scene. We got to be the first one. We got to have the best story. There's that competitive nature that by default says there's going to be some error. Just because you agree, there are people who agree with Fox News and they think all the other channels are all fake and all da 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 da. Okay, but just because you agree with the news you're watching doesn't mean that it's all true. And my
Yeah,
point is
well,
we've got to come to the middle because there's like any argument, there's this side, blah, 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 there's this side, blah, 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 blah. And in the middle is where the truth is actually as far as what's going on. Because these both people
no,
are
like I said, you were saying that because I was thinking about the hieroglyphics that told the story of the Egyptian time, and I'm sure they might have had some bias and everything along those lines. But yeah, I mean, one of the famous sayings that has been in the news media, and I've actually have a degree in this field and everything, and it's not a saying that I enjoy and everything, but it's a notion that if it bleeds, it leads. I remember when I first got into journalism, the second
exactly.
newspaper that I worked at was a minority newspaper, and the gentleman had something that he called the red line. Unfortunately, my editor at the time decided to change it around, and he would talk about issues and try to bring different perspectives around the issues. So I think AIDS was just coming out at that time, so it might be a story around AIDS, might be a story around homelessness or things around those lines, and just talking about those issues. And he would make the red line, but Mr. Gervais, when he was living, he actually wanted us to go to the police department and find a sensational story, and that's what he wanted to be the red
Yeah.
line. But like I said, Grover kind of twisted that around and made the red line more something that was of interest and of consequence to people and all along those lines. I actually need to see if Grover is still around. I'm not even sure he's still living and everything, but I do remember that that was something he did kind of like twist the narrative, because the way that the publisher wanted it is he wanted something sensational that when you saw the paper fold in the news rack, because we had news racks back then. I was also thinking about a newspaper show that I saw, a play that talks about the whole notion of yellow journalism, which is Newsies, which was about the newspaper boys that would shout out the story of the day, whether that was the Titanic or whatever else. But yeah, this whole notion of objectivity has been there for a while and everything. I know that I try to model my own reporting after people that I admire, whether that was Walter Cronkite, who you mentioned earlier, or I was a big fan, partially because he's from here and had a little bit of Southern charm, with Charles Kuralt, who would go and interview common people in Sunday Morning and things like that. So I was a big Charles Kuralt fan, and David Brenner and some others that would have some engaging conversations, and they might just be common people. Because, and then I'll get off my soapbox, but I can sometimes get frustrated when the good news of the world isn't covered, because even in the different niche publications, I mean, when was the last time you picked up a paper that catered toward the elderly community? Because there are papers that cater toward the elderly community, or papers that cater toward the minority community, and actually saw a entrepreneur or somebody that was being successful being featured and everything. Because even in their niche communities, a lot of times things aren't covered.
I was in the newspaper in high school, and it was like, yeah, how do we get people to read? They're not coming in to read. Oh yeah, somebody did something nice for somebody. It's scandal. Right. It's like, if it bleeds, it leads. And in marketing, I've spent the last all my adult life in marketing in one way or another, and you've got to grab people's attention. And unfortunately, it's not good news that grabs people's attention.
No, but usually, and, even here,
we've got to, if there's outlandish statements being made on both sides of the fence, and we've got to look at this. Okay, is this really true? Or is this just something to be mad about? Is this something just geared to raise my dander? Or is this something that's really true? And we've got to really look at all of these things. I think it's interesting that the younger people are not going to those statements. I have a friend who follows a political person. He's generally not been really political, but he's gotten very political over this election. And he follows some guy, I don't remember his name, it doesn't matter. But he's like, he doesn't watch the news, but he listens to this guy, because the guy's like, he gives full examples. He explains, like the legal part of it, so okay, so this is old, but the word mandate did not actually mean we have to. The legal definition of mandate and how we as the general public use the word mandate are very different. And so there was actually no legal you must. They cannot make a law. They couldn't make it a law. That's why it was a mandate, because it was illegal for them to make it a law that people have to wear masks or get a shot. So they made it a mandate, because that word to us lay people means, oh, you must. But that's not legally how it actually gets used. It was a voluntary thing. And so these people, you've got these people who do spend a lot of time. What's the black girl who's gotten a lot of the Republican? Owens?
Candace Owens. Yeah, Candace Owens.
So she's got a very interesting platform, whether you agree with her or not. She's got a very interesting platform, because she's telling, like, this is why. She's explaining stuff. And you're seeing people who they're not on the news, but they're saying, okay, here's this law. Here's what this law really means. Here's how this is really going to affect. I remember even as a kid, we were studying government in school, and we're studying different laws, and like, one of the things, this is silly, but it's a great example. So for a time, houses got taxed based on how many doors.
Mm-hmm.
And outside doors, not inside doors, but outside doors. Right. And so during that time period, you have a lot of homes that are built with very large windows. that might conveniently go up into the wall so you can walk through them. Or you have French windows. My house has these French windows on them. Let me tell you, it would be very easy for me if I didn't have a screen on there to open them up and go out those French windows
Right.
and with very little trouble. And so a lot of people they came up with these little ways around the laws. And I remember even as a kid going, okay, the lawmakers make these laws, and forget what I learned, but the law was here's this law, and this is how people got around it. And I'm saying, why aren't the lawmakers having that conversation with themselves? If we're going to make this law, then what are the ways people are going to go around it? And do we need to make amendments for the ways people are going to go around it? And that's not what I see happen. People make but that's the deal because up on the hill, they're all friends. The blue doesn't need the red, the red doesn't need the blue like we do. They want us to hate each other. But if they're
Well,
making deals, they're
yeah,
making
they
deals.
want to, yeah, they want to hate each other, and then they also do things that confuse us as well and everything. Because even with the mandate conversation and everything, I was always taught that a mandate is usually perceived to be a majority and everything like that. And we probably haven't had, and I'd even say Obama and Clinton, and definitely not Trump and Bush either, have had a true mandate because most people have not. There's a sizable population that haven't voted, and even if you win the majority vote, I don't know that you have a mandate if it's something like I forgot what the percentage is. I think it was like 51-47 or 52-48 or something like that. But it was closer than people give credit for. So that, and then if you count the people that didn't vote, is there a real mandate and everything? So that's a whole other definition. And then the other thing that I found really fascinating, that you might find fascinating, was when I was in Miami for those few days and everything, is and you're talking about buildings and the building constructions and those rules, is that there was I'm sure it's happened in California too. There was a booming rise, but we were traveling, me and one of the founders of the network, with a young lady, and we noticed that there was, because she even pointed to it. She said, "How many lights do you see?" And we've even seen it here in Durham that are empty. So there was a number of very fancy houses, literally on beachfront property, but they were probably, I would guess, based on what we saw, maybe 20% occupied, if that. So there's a lot of people that are holding onto that property and trying to figure out what they're going to do with that property, and maybe they'll convert it to something, because I think the Bright Line runs through one of those properties and everything, which is a rail system and everything, that they use that building as a entranceway, because they kind of converted it, best I could tell, or maybe they're doing something else with it. But it's just fascinating, the misuse of land and property that we have, because there's a lot of buildings even here in Durham that are sitting empty, and I imagine it's the same in LA. I mean, I know it with the fire, y'all have a lot of empty space now, but that was a very tragic situation. But even
Well,
before the fire,
here in my side of town, there was at least 5,000 people that were out of a house.
right?
That's 5,000 homes. That's 5,000. Those people have got to find a place to live. That's a lot. That's a lot.
And that's where I get confused, Jeanette, and everything. Because if you got 5,000, and I don't know, I mean, I know some of the offices were destroyed too. Because even here, we've got not as much homeless as y'all have, but we have homeless people and we got empty buildings. It seems to me that you could fit the buildings to put the homeless people and people that don't have a house into those environments. That's what I meant when I said there's a lot of wasted space. Because I mean, I didn't see a ton, but I did see some homeless people. And then this young lady said that those buildings were basically empty.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's just, I, what I've seen, at least here, is that people have, people have opened up spaces like as much as they could. And I've seen several people, hey, I've got an ADU in my back. You can come stay here, and the beautiful thing about, and a lot of Airbnb said, hey, come live here. Like, they've opened up their doors for long term. I don't know how that works with Airbnb rules or not, but I know they have a lot of strict rules. But maybe they had to take them off themselves. They probably had to take themselves off Airbnb for a year to do that.
How do you feel about? I know we're winding down, but how do you feel about Airbnbs? Because I met one of the producers. I met. She's actually in the science fiction space. Young African American woman, probably she's a divorcee, probably in her early 40s and everything. But she was talking about that she was staying in I think she's from St. Louis by way of Chicago, but she was staying in an Airbnb And apparently, when she told people where she was staying at the Airbnb, they were like basically like saying that would be like staying at Watts. Because I think they were talking to a California filmmaker and everything because they were staying at Little Havana, and they even said that they had no problem catching an Uber. And when they walked into the neighborhood, it wasn't as problematic as they were probably perceiving it was going to be based on it being in that quote unquote Cuban Spanish neighborhood. But they were like they were like neither were down there for I think they had come to there were two conferences back to back. So I think they had come for both conferences. So they probably there a little bit longer than that was like 5 or 6 days, but they said they didn't have any problem getting around, and it was that kind of like you were talking about earlier, that stereotype that people have based on perceived images and everything, because they heard the title Little Havana and they were like, ooh, that must be a bad Airbnb. And she was like, I didn't have any problem with the owners. I didn't have any problem. Some of the nicer neighborhoods I might have had more of a problem.
I've stayed in a few Airbnbs, and I know several people that have them, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I think when you're traveling, there's an element of ignorance is bliss,
Right.
and there is an element of if you're taught to be afraid of an area, then you're taught to be afraid of it. You know,
Right. Right.
I stayed at one Airbnb that the heat didn't work. That was not acceptable. I stayed at another one. I didn't realize I wasn't supposed to go in the kitchen, and she just had a hissy fit. Well, I accidentally left the light on in the kitchen. Oh my god, that cost me electricity. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, here's $5. Like, shut up. How
Exactly.
much did that one light bulb cost you all day? I'm like, if you're really on that tight of a budget, oh my god, I don't even know what to do. But I just said, here's $5. Just I'm sorry. What can you do in that situation?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I get that somebody's in your private space and it can be taxing, and but then you're also opening up your private space to somebody, and I don't think doing something like going in the kitchen and turning the light on is an inexcusable action. Going in your bedroom, if there was an area of the house that was blocked off, going in your bedroom, that's definitely actionable. But
Yeah.
I'm like, so, and I
Well,
have heard stories about people, Airbnbs getting part of it's like, okay, like my contract for design, there's stuff in there that is there because I ran into a situation. So I've heard, you can't use the thermostat. Well, they don't want the thermostat because they don't want somebody going in there and turning it down to 60 degrees when there's 100 degrees outside. Now they've got a $400 and it didn't meet, or they turn the AC on and they open up the windows and now you've got to, like, stupid stuff like that people do when it's not their house.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
so the rules are there for a reason, and then you get somebody who's not obnoxious in there, and the rules look silly and stupid, and why are you trying to control? But it's doing that because not everybody has the same quote unquote norm.
Yeah, everybody's got their own norm and their own style of doing things. That was the other thing that was fascinating, even on the trip and everything, was taking those one, two, three, four airplane flights and four shuttles, two Ubers, and one that's a company called Booking.com and everything. But on all four of the planes, there was, but probably partially because of the incidents that have happened recently in the air, none of them were full. So, as I think they were probably in some cases 40% full, or maybe even a little bit around 50% full, and maybe around that. So every one of the stewardesses and or the pilots would make this joke about basically what you've been talking about in this whole episode, which is spread out, but also respect your neighbor and be kind to your neighbor, and let's just enjoy this flight together and everything like that. But they were encouraging people to respect each other and just be kind to each other as you're going on this short journey, whether it was a 2.5 hour flight or a 1 hour flight, wherever the different flights were and everything. But I just found that humorous that they all did that. One did the flights because of people. Part of that is COVID. Part of that, which you still got people afraid to fly, and part of that is these crashes that have happened recently and everything. But there was because I even heard some of the other flights going to other places, and they were all making that same kind of reference. Like, we're not full, so you've got plenty of room. Go. This is open seating. Go sit and get. You can have a whole row to yourself. If you're traveling with your wife, Y'all can have a separate room if y'all are having friction.
You got to make it light. You got to make it
Yeah,
light.
exactly. They were making it light. It was fun.
I mean, there's so much that goes into air travel and being respectful of each other. I mean,
Right.
you don't.
That's what they
I
were
was on an
encouraging.
airplane one time. Oh my god, the guy. It was very clear from the smell what type of food the guy had eaten last. But it was a long. It was a 3 or 4 hour flight, and this guy had gas, or maybe it was a girl. I don't know. I kind of assumed it was a guy, but it could have been a girl. Horrid, 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 horrid gas. And it like started very soon after we went up in the air, and it like everybody was gagging. It was absolutely terrible, and it was very clear the last meal had been Indian food. Now, whether the person was Indian or not, nobody fessed up. I know that I was pretty close to it, and the everybody was complaining because it wasn't just like somebody passed gas. It was like it whatever they ate really did not suit them, and it
Wow.
was constant and bad, and and so she would come around with an air freshener. It didn't help. It didn't help at all. Oh my god! When we got off that plane, everybody was like, "Oh my god, I can breathe again." And on one hand, I feel bad for whoever it was because it wasn't something they meant to do.
Right.
These are things that the body goes through. They weren't. I don't think I've never tried to purposely pass
They were
gas,
right.
but I don't think you can control it to that extent. I think
Mm-mm.
they should have gone to the bathroom and spent some time in the bathroom, which the smell never dissipated, so that didn't happen. But yeah, I don't know if the bathroom has at least some odor
Yeah.
things, and
Odor things in there. Exactly.
yeah, so they could have at least gone and sat in the bathroom for a while instead of just sitting there in their chair,
Yeah.
you know. But it was, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
got you.
I'd rather have a baby next to me than that.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
I don't
But
mind
you
babies,
got,
but they don't, their bodies can't, they don't know how to handle it either, and they cry, and I don't care, I'll play with a baby, but he
and
made that
babies
flight
can
absolutely terrible for everybody, and I'm sure
and
it
babies
wasn't
can make
pleasant
for
for them.
and babies can make for interesting conversation. I know that the
They can.
booking person that I had that was from Cuba. They actually the first thing when I got into the car, I think her name was it was one of my names like Isabel or something like that. But she was from Cuba originally. She's the one that told me that they had had a power shower outage. I think it was like yesterday or 2 days ago in Cuba and everything. But it was literally a baby that is what caught my attention when I got it in the car with the young lady because she was a grandmother. And the first thing I came in was I noticed that there was I noticed the first one, and then as we kept driving, I noticed the second one. But there was a Smurf hat. She had taken her grandson to get a Burger King meal, and they had given him the Smurf hat. So that's when I knew that she had young people in her life. And it turns out that it was her 20. I think she said she had a 23 and a 25-year-old granddaughter. Grandson, and they had gone out to eat, so she still had that remnants of the child there. So sometimes children can also make for good
Right?
conversational pieces because that's what we wound up talking about was her living in Cuba, but also her families, and because she was the mother. I mean, she was the grandmother of the child, but her jobs where she was doing this job. I think she said she had done one of the delivery companies too. I don't. She said she didn't do Uber or Lyft. It might have been Sparks, and then she had done this company as well. But the rest of her job was being because her daughter was young and her daughter was working. She was the other mother figure to the
Right.
grandkids, and so
Right.
that's what she was. That's why she had the two hats there from Burger King.
I didn't know the Smurfs were still big amongst kids.
Apparently they're big with kids, and apparently they have a promotion. Maybe it must be with Burger King because it was a crown, and I'm pretty sure it was a Smurf crown.
Hmm.
but I think I'd have to look it up, but I think it's a latest promotion that they're doing. But the other thing that was popular, what I forgot about, you probably know about it because you have, well, I have some friends that have young kids, but one of the shows that they kept talking about at this conference, because there were people that were affiliated with it from the BBC, but I'm still trying to figure out what the heck a Bluey is. But apparently Bluey is very popular among the young people, and it's out of England, but it's some sort of miniseries that's coming out of London. I think it comes out of BBC, and it's called Bluey. So I'm guessing it is another version of a Smurf. Oh, she just disappeared. Where did she go? I don't know where she went, but it's been another fun episode of the. Oh, there she goes. I see her back. I'm going to get her back on, and we can end the show once I find her back on and everything like that. I think she hit the wrong button.
Pixie did it. It wasn't me. Pixie stepped on the keyboard. So
say what?
Tail. Pixie did it.
Tail.
Look, it's her fault. She did it.
Oh, but the cat did it.
It is time to go. So I think it's lunchtime for me, and
it's time for Kindu Spice.
It's time for Kindu Spice.
And you didn't even know that you were doing an hour show, but we might have had a good conversation. It was a fun conversation, and you got a lot of good information. And yes, I do agree that we have to get out of this hate thoughts and everything. I mean, I've heard over the weekend. And you're right, they exist on both sides. A lot of people are liking to go down various rabbit holes, and there are various rabbit holes of conspiracies. And I think that there are conspiracies on both the left and the right. And some of the conspiracies may be actually based on facts. Some of them may be based on people's imaginations, but you can get caught in a whole matrix if you go down those rabbit holes and everything, because they can be very interesting, but they can also be very much of a headache.
Ask questions. The curious minds want to know, remember? No, but seriously, we've got a question. And I think that's why young people aren't watching the quote unquote news that we grew up watching. It's because they are asking questions. And, I read in college, I took a class of physics for poets, and physics without the math. But I read this book, and it was, what was it called? The Pleasure of Finding Things Out, I think it's called. And it's by Richard Feynman, he worked on the atom bomb with Einstein. Like, this is way big up guy, right? When it comes to quote unquote science, he's one of the big top ones. And the book is always question. What got him where he questioned everything, questioned everyone. And I got into it with somebody on Facebook. They were talking about RFK, and I'm not big on I'm into with stuff. And the one thing I am very happy about is that RFK is up there fighting for our health. And a lot of people think, oh, he's a nutcase. Well, he doesn't believe in vaccines, so he must be a nutcase. And I asked them, I said, do you know what's in your vaccine? Well, no, but the medical, I said, I don't need to know what's in it. The great medical group, something, they know, and they would do what's good for us. I said, I dare you to go look up what those chemicals are that's actually in your vaccines. Go find out what chemicals are there. Go find out what they really are. And one of the things that I didn't get into, and people get all upset with the abortion thing. Well, the truth of the matter is that they do use the fetuses in vaccines. And so whatever laws are presented, there is so much money on the other side of the table. There are billions of dollars on the other side of the abortion table that are there. And whether you like it or not, that industry is not disappearing. It's just
not going anywhere.
And so if Texas says you can't have abortion, it's not going to go away. It's just not. And,
it won't go away, but like I said, and that's a whole other conversation, because one of my fears is that sometimes it can go, because it happened before, they can go just like anything else further underground and everything. But like I said,
Mark, wait a second. Okay, it happened before, but let's really look at that for a minute. I'm going to get political. I'm sorry. But okay, 1960s. How many vaccines did people get in 1960s?
I don't remember. I was a baby at that time, but I
Less
remember there was
than
the
10.
measles. It was like
Less
probably about
than
5 or
10.
6.
Less
Huh?
than 10. Less than
Right.
10. Okay? You know how many vaccines the babies get now? They get 70 vaccines from the time 0 to 18. They get 70 vaccines.
Oh yeah, no, no.
And
So we no. I definitely agree that we
how
over
many more
vaccine.
people are there on this planet now than there were back in 1960?
Oh yeah, there's
Now
billions
we
of more
have
people.
the big pharma. Pharma, look at the business of pharma. Pharma is the one who's spending all those billions of dollars on the other side of the table. How big was the pharma industry back in 1960? It wasn't. We were still
Hmm.
getting people used to coming out of grandma's kitchen and depending on doctors. So they were still making the process of
But it's
making
not. But it's
grandma
not. But
bad and
yeah, it's
the
bad.
old
But
wives' tales bad, and the doctors were not gurus yet. Now, how dare you question a doctor? Oh no, we couldn't possibly question the WHO. Oh no, we couldn't possibly question the AMA. Oh no, 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 we couldn't. No way. No. So the industry as a whole has changed. We are not in the world we were in 1960. Should somebody
no.
be in a back alley and use coat hangers and have an abortion? 100% no. No, absolutely not. Do I want that? Absolutely not. But my point is, we're not back in 1960. The machine that is so much bigger now than it was in 1960 because this has happened.
No, but
Like,
the machine is even bigger than that because it was one of the people that was at the conference was talking about, and they had documented it. It wasn't one of the speakers; it was somebody that was there as an attendee and everything. But they have seen that. I think some of the vaccines are actually, um, t- even those of you that have avoided the vaccine may not really be avoiding the vaccine because what they told me is that some of the
okay,
vaccines are literally in your bread and in your
I
food.
know,
So if
I
you're
know,
eating, so if you're
I
eating,
know.
and
Which is
it's some of the big
disgusting.
pharma companies that are literally putting them into those things. So I was joking. I was like, so Wonder Bread's got it. We're just using that as a brand and everything. No, there are tons of bread brands. Because one of the people had even asked me, so does that mean that the government's putting it in there, or they have it mandated for them to put it in there, and they didn't really have an answer.
Yeah, no, there has been talk about going in our food, which is criminal because then we're not making a choice. We're not
But
making a
then
choice. That's criminal. It's criminal.
that's very criminal if that's
Um,
the case.
no, I've heard that and I'm aware of that. And it's interesting. One of the things they said that one of the places they put it in was like kale, and the quote unquote trendy healthy vegetables,
Right.
and
Yeah.
people are eating a lot of, and um, yeah, it's terrible. But we're not going to go back to horse and buggies.
Nope.
People are like,
We're
oh,
gonna
it's going
go.
to be 1950 again. We can't go back to 1950 in any level. Can we go back because the machine is totally different now. So no more are we going to go back to horse and buggy. Then I mean, that would be like saying, okay, we're going to get rid of Detroit and we're going to all go back to having horse and buggy. Well,
Yeah. No, we won't go back to
we've
horse and
got
buggy.
people
But
that
there's
live in apartments and townhouses and condos. They don't have a place to have a horse. They couldn't do it.
right.
They couldn't do it.
No.
So the function of society wouldn't fit horse and buggy anymore.
Yep. We won't go back to horse and buggy. But I mean, we may go back to some other things that I don't want us to go back to. But that's a whole other story. Because, like I said, there are things that are done on both sides that are favorable and some that are not favorable and everything like that. So, like I said, it'll be interesting to
Well,
see.
and then it comes to we the people,
Right.
right? So the government can say one thing, but we the people have to stand up and say, you know what? I mean, I've worked in business. I worked in a company where I told you about the baby factory, and there was discrimination against women by a woman. My boss was a woman, and let me tell you, there was discrimination against women because she didn't want to deal with it every 3 months. Oh, somebody's pregnant. She didn't want to deal with it, so
No,
she didn't. And then I worked in a place where I was the only white girl. Everybody else was Mexican, and you want to tell me? I mean, I know white people can't be discriminated against, but let me tell you, there was discrimination, and it's not fun no matter which side you're on. And
no, discrimination is not fun, and discrimination can also be
But
self-discrimination. I think I told you a long
it
time
is.
ago that I worked at a newspaper where there was and it was ironically, it was in Florida, where there was a gentleman. I don't even know if he's still in the journalism field. I don't even know if he's still alive for that matter, but he was an editor and he enjoyed being an editor. And there was, I think, one woman that was there and myself, but he liked to give us a harder time than the other people because he didn't like having another voice of another minority voice. And in some ways, women are also treated as minority voice. I know y'all are the majority
Absolutely.
gender,
Well,
but y'all are treated as the
here's the
minority
thing.
voice.
Here's the thing too with the machine. Okay, so I can only speak as somebody who grew up in LA, outskirts of LA, because that's what I am. Okay,
Right.
but when I went to school, most of my world was white. We did have some black, we did have some Mexican, we did have some Chinese, but that was what the majority of this area was made up of. Now you go back to that same school, and it's mostly brown. Brown can be Mexican, brown can be this, brown can be Oriental, but
Right.
it's mostly brown. And so what this area, when I drive by schools now, there's it is not a mostly white school. Most of the kids, I would say under 30, grew up in very mixed environments. And it didn't exist where I was. I was a little kid. I don't know exactly what was going on, but just my experience, right? I
Right.
When there was somebody of a different color in my class, I don't remember anybody berating them. I don't remember, oh, we have to gang up on them. I had a cousin who was the only white kid in his Mexican school, and he got beat up quite a bit. And so I don't remember seeing that. I don't know that the people who were of those colors felt that. I don't know. But that's not the world that we're living in, at least here in LA. That is not the world we're living in. We have a much more multicultural place here. And so you have business owners who are going to create a environment that they prefer. And that may be we only have people. That may be we only have Mexican people. That may be we only have black people. Very few people are going to say we only hire white people. In today's day and age, I don't see that happening. I really don't. I think that we, as a people, have become very much more interested in diversity and wanting and craving somebody who is a little different from us. And I can only speak for LA. And I'm not saying there's no racism here, because that's not true. But we have kids we've got a lot more kids who are half and half something than when you and I grow up. We've got a lot more kids who are half and half. So to say that we're going to go back to 1960s segregated schools, you've got a lot of kids who don't belong in one category, and some of them even have 4 categories. And
Right.
I think that the diversity, again, the machine has become very hard. This is where we have to have faith in the people that it's not going to be like that. Diversity is going to continue because people are going to create an environment that they want to be in, whatever that is. And that's regardless of laws. I've been in situations where, with the laws in place, it was not pretty.
Mm-hmm. I
And
can see that in everything.
so it is up for us. Ultimately, there was a meme that was going around during COVID with the chess table and all the pieces. What was underneath the chess table? It was us, the people. And they're all bending over. All we have to do is stand up. So as we stand up and say, wait, I'm not going to let the government tell me that, I did it. I can't wear a mask. I'm not going to let the government tell me I have to wear a mask. I went to the places that didn't care if I wore a mask. I had to wear a visor or something, but I had people kick me out of the stores because I didn't have a mask on. And I had the visor on. Well, that's not the right kind. It doesn't feel any good. Oh, well, there's some really weird noise in the background. I mean, What's going on where you got some really weird noise in the background.
Oh, my washing machine.
Oh, so the thing is, like, the people who you and I are when we were 10 is so different than who we are now because the world has changed so much.
The world has changed. Like I said, I don't even know if my high school had what it had in the 70s and 80s. Because when I was in high school, we literally had 3 homecoming queens. I think I told you that before. We had because it was a mixed society. It was majority African American town, but there was a decent European American population, and there was a folks that identified as a Native American and everything. So they made it a point. I'm pretty sure all during the late 70s and probably into the early 80s to make sure that there was a homecoming queen that represented all 3 of those ethnicities and everything. So they and even you can't do that if there are 2 major positions, and every high school has a valedictorian and a salutatorian. But it was pretty much a unwritten rule that they would try to get at least 2 of the 3 of the ethnicities represented by that valedictorian salutatorian rule and everything. So like I said, they would try to make sure that you couldn't have 3. Well, I guess technically they could have had 3, but they opted not to have 3. But if there was a Native American valedictorian, then they might try to have either an African American or a white salutatorian. But that was like an unwritten rule from the way that I was informed about that, and that was 40 or 50 years ago. And my memory may be off on that, but that's the way I remember it. I know the homecoming queen was a definite case.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, there's the government only runs so much. The people are really where it's at. And
No,
there are
the people
companies
always
that will never hire X, Y, Z, no matter what, and no law is going to change that.
Yeah, the people has always been where it's at. I mean, that's why my parents called their radio station Voice of Serving People when they had the station from 76 to about 87, 88, because that was the notion, was it would be voices of the people serving the people. So that was kind of the notion, was it was common people presenting stories that you might not know or didn't know and everything. So that's why they created that particular station, and that was the tagline. Like, every station has a tagline of some degree and everything. But yeah, with WBSP, which stood for Voice of Serving People.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
So we have the power to speak up. And, I know a lot of people are going on at RFK and he's crazy. And you know what? He's fighting a machine. He's not crazy. And if you really do go look into what's in our medicine, and because I did this dive, I had to go down this dive because of other stuff that was going on with me. I did this dive way before Trump, way before RFK came into this power thing. And it's disturbing. It's freaking scary that our quote unquote medical system would be willing to do this. And it is unbelievable. It is unbelievable.
The medical system
it's true. And so the fact that he's out there and, at least if he gets to the point where vaccines are an option for people, and that would be great. If we can get some of the chemicals out of our food, a lot of our food, they make the same brand here and it's got certain chemicals in it, and we have to remake it in Europe without all that stuff because they won't sell it in Europe. Why not just sell it to us? It doesn't make any sense. So if he can get rid of some of that crap and get rid of some of the crap in our food, amen. God bless him.
If he can do it, but like I said, it'll be interesting to see if he can do it or not, because a lot of times people tilted the windmill and tackled the machine, and sometimes they find themselves being as corrupted and everything. I mean, there's still a lot of people that are involved on both the left, the right, the middle, the purple, the green, whatever. Absolutely. From the Epstein files, and those were never released.
Raising a question. What was there was a movie or something. What was that I just saw? Little girl, first little black girl who went to a white school. Somebody raised a question.
The one from Arkansas.
And they said, no, she needs to go here. Somebody raised a question. If people don't question, that's when there's a problem.
Yep.
When you say we can't question authority, what? Now that's when you have Hitler. We've been throwing Hitler around a lot for the last 20 years, and I don't like it. Obama got compared to Hitler. Now Trump's being compared to Hitler. I don't like it. So afraid for their own lives that they won't question what they're being told to do, or what they're being told to do. That's when we have a problem. I knew somebody who was in he was from Germany, and he was in the he was like 5 years old in the war. And like, he won't talk about it. He's like, "No, I won't talk about it." That was, he was 5 years old, but he's like, "No, no, that's so far part of my past." And it wasn't something he chose. It wasn't something, but you have a lot of people, a lot of soldiers who are doing what they were told to do, even though what they were told to do wasn't what they believed in. You had people giving up, turning in friends, turning in neighbors because, oh, I'm afraid for my life. They were so afraid of what could happen to them if they didn't. When fear rules that's when you have something terrible. I can't take that noise anymore.
Been going on for decades.
That noise is terrible.
But I'll give it a turn off in a second. But that's part of the whole notion of that's been going on for decades, because even that notion of the black soldiers that fought during the Civil War, I mean, not during Civil War, fought during like Vietnam and everything else. And then when they came back, they were frustrated because they didn't have the rights of the countries that they were fighting for and everything. And so that's been going on for decades, and whether it was World War II, whether it was World War One, whether it was probably even the Civil War, but definitely Vietnam and everything, because I didn't even know some of those soldiers, because some of them are my dad's age, particularly the Vietnam ones, and my grandparents' age and everything. And yeah, they were frustrated, because they would come here and they'd be like, wait a minute, we were fighting for the rights of these people over there, and we don't have those same rights in our own country.
And
so that's been
that's absolutely not okay.
It's totally not okay. It's totally not okay.
All right, it's time. It's hungry time.
Okay, go get your food.
All right. Can do spice.
All right.
Get healthy.
You do the same. Always fun talking to you.
Good. Thank you.
No problem. It's time for some Can Do Spice. And of course, the washing machine is now finally going off.
Oh, man, that's terrible.
Yeah. Here we go. Can Do Spice.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends, so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.